This video of a student employee kicking out a pro-Trump group because they were allegedly in violation of the shop's safe space policy.
So ridiculous. I don't want people like you supporting this club.
Well, then you should include that when I want a refund on my coffee.
Like
Yeah, then I can have a refund on my coffee.
You are wearing hats that completely violate our safe space policy. I'm
Does
telling
this
you
hat
to
have
take
a
it
racist
off
slur
or you
on it?
have to go. Yes, it does.
What is that?
Your hat violates our safe space.
Fascism, Nazis. Okay, what do you want? 3 minutes.
I do not see fascism, Nazis on this hat. I see America.
Minutes.
3 minutes. You're violating our safe space with your hat.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so over the top and hysterical. I mean, obviously people are getting completely overwrought over nothing. And I don't understand. Make America great. Like, what's wrong with the hat? Really? Really? You have like ISIS and terrorists trying to blow us up, and you're upset over a hat. You're losing it over a hat.
So if they were wearing an ISIS hat, you would say similarly, leave it alone, don't say a word?
You can wear whatever you want. I really don't care. It's there for coffee. I can't believe people in college care about this stuff. I know you've banned this, but this is Snowflake City Gutfeld, or I should say Greg. I know you don't like it when I say your last name.
Oh, you don't?
It's pathetic. Yes, Guilfoyle. It is pathetic. And it's sad. It's just sad. And these creatures are never going to make it in the real world.
So Dana, a similar incident happened at Howard University, but apparently there was more of a intent to stimulate that kind of crime.
Well, I think there is a little bit of this of being provocative to see if you can get a reaction and get it on camera, so they'll play it on the 5, because we know we get pitched that stuff all the time. But I think that even the left understands that they're starting to have a problem. No, not starting. That they have a major problem on campuses, but it's been going on for many years, and they've got to figure out a way to get around it.
Mr. Gregg.
The left mastered the wearable message. Every van covered in bumper stickers. That was not a conservative. It was always a liberal, at least when I was growing up. So now political messages have migrated to the right. People are doing it, and it is a political message. You're going in there, you're wearing that, but it shouldn't. A hat shouldn't upset you. I mean, in the old days, the young were adventurous. They went out and did stuff. Now they retreat into these safe spaces, and they can't. If you're scared of a hat, what happens if you see a pair of pants?
Oh my goodness.
It's a safe space. Your hat's violating our safe space. I'm scared.
Now, regular viewers of this show know that we've fallen pretty hard for Chris Cuomo. Learned that an editor.
I think that's true.
Everybody gets this.
Oh, okay. And I think that we know about Project Veritas trying to make up stuff. I think we know about that.
Chicago's government can't keep its citizens safe. People are leaving the city, normal middle-class people, but it can give a lot of benefits to people who shouldn't be here in the first place. Rahm Emanuel's pledged to give IDs to illegal immigrants next. Rahm Emanuel's regime in Chicago has a new plan for so-called undocumented immigrants. Give them documents, just like everybody else. For more, we're joined by Fox National correspondent Matt Finn, who's in Chicago for us tonight. Hey, Matt.
Tucker, Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel has unveiled his new city ID program. The individual IDs will be called City Keys. The program will give a government ID to anyone living in the city regardless of their U.S. immigration status. The mayor of Chicago says the IDs are meant to welcome the undocumented community into the city.
If you want somebody who's undocumented to feel comfortable to be able to drive their child to school and all the benefits, they have to be part of the city. This municipal ID, the city key, will bring all those different communities and more that are on the periphery, on the sideline, into our city. And when we say welcome, we mean welcome.
The city of Chicago says the IDs are meant to be an all-in-one resource for Chicagoans who can link their library and public transit accounts to the card, and there will be discounts at cultural centers and for our veterans and senior citizens. However, critics, including Chicago aldermen, worry Emanuel's program will give IDs to people here illegally, especially since the city of Chicago will not be asking applicants about their U.S. immigration status. Applicants only have to prove they live in Chicago and must pass a 4-point ID system, and applicants are able to pick their gender on the IDs. The first 100,000 IDs will be free, and the city of Chicago insists the program will be secure enough to weed out fraudulent applicants. Tucker?
I'm sure it will. Matt Finn from Chicago, thank you. Francisco Hernandez is an immigration attorney from the state of Texas, and he joins us tonight. Francisco, thanks a lot for coming on.
Hi, thank you for having me on.
So the city of Chicago is deeply in debt. The middle class is fleeing. Crime has moved not just from the south side, but to the center of the city. It's got the highest parking fees in the country. The city's in a really tough shape. Why would the city, in the middle of the various crises it's facing, take all this time and all this money to serve the needs of people who are here illegally over citizens?
Well, you know, don't be so hard on Chicago. It's pretty stout. But you know what? My friend Lauren Wall told me that the reason Donald Trump won is because he's the only one saying nice things about America. But you know what? We're forgetting that these undocumented illegal immigrants are the only ones that are dying to get to this country. That is the highest compliment. They hang under trains, they swim, they are willing to die to get here to this country and earn the opportunity to be here. Now, once they get here, they want to sign the guest book. That's all they're saying is we get their biometrics, they're the eye optics, they get the sign. We know who they are. Do you
we don't
think
know who they are. We don't know who they are because hold on, slow down. We don't know who they are. They don't have American birth certificates. There's no way to check their identification. This is an invitation to fraud. But speaking of fraud, what percentage of these people are already working in this country? A high percentage. Everyone is working in this country.
0% unemployment.
Right. So every person here illegally who's working is doing so with a fake Social Security number, fake federal documents. That's a felony. Wait, no, what do you mean? Wait, hold on. After 9/11, we realized that using fake federal documents is not a joke, so we made it a felony, punishable by years in prison. Why would you give special privileges to someone who's committing an open felony? I don't understand.
You're not. We're hiring them. We are giving them jobs. They are 100% employed. We, you and I, when we go to a restaurant, when we go to a hotel, when you get your roof done, guys, let's not be hypocrites. Let's not be hypocrites. We need the labor.
I'm not using,
we need the labor.
No,
and
I'm not using fake. Wait, slow down. Okay, enough the talking points. This is
You're going to go put up a roof at 110 degrees.
Does it bother you? Look, there are actually Americans who will get outside and work. I hire them.
Not you and I.
Yeah, not you and I. But there are people who will. And the point I'm asking you is unrelated to that, and it's a really simple one. Why would you want to reward people who are committing fraud with federal documents, committing a felony? I don't understand.
It's a legally issued. It's a legally issued ID that they're offering, and they're trying to tell you who they are, and they're trying to tell you that they're willing to earn the opportunity to be in this country. They're not even asking for government benefits. I mean, come on.
Every single one of them. Every single one of them receives government benefits. Every single one, and apparently. Every single, it's certainly not a lie. Do their children go to school here? Do they get health care in the emergency room? Do they use the roads? Do some of them get do some of them get tax benefits for children? Yes, all of them. So look, the point is, I'm just trying to correct.
You've got a big heart.
Yeah, I do, because I care about the Americans, for example, in the city of Chicago, who don't have
jobs. The compliment they're giving us.
Yeah.
They love America. They're America
so let me just ask you,
to make America great again.
Then why wouldn't they obey our laws if they love America so much?
They're trying to.
Really? Then why don't they leave and apply normally like everybody else through the legal system?
Because you can't. It is impossible.
Why
it does
can't
not
you?
Exist. Because it doesn't exist on their law. That's why you and I
bring in over 1 million people every. Do you know anything? I thought you were an immigration attorney. We bring in over 1 million people legally every single year.
I'm pretty good at it.
Okay.
I'm pretty good at it.
Then when you say there's no way for them to do it, how do the million-odd other people come here legally?
Well, it's not 1 million odd. We give diversity visas to countries they helped us in the war.
Over 1 million.
Nothing wrong with that. Okay, but they're not up there putting our roofs. Guys, they're wanting to sign your guest book. They're willing to come out of the shadows and say, this is who I am.
Francisco, thanks for joining us tonight. I appreciate it. You canceled your trip to Charleston or Chattanooga and decided instead to go on a nice, relaxing cruise away from prying cameras. Oh, but you can't get away. A family traveling on a Carnival cruise in the Gulf of Mexico said they found a hidden camera in their cabin. Carnival Cruise Line says the camera was non-operational and they notified police. The family says they haven't received an apology even. Jimmy Messis is an expert on sweeping for electronic bugs. Vinu Varghese is an attorney and expert in surveillance crimes. They join us both tonight. Vinu, first to you. What is this? They say it was non-operational. What does that mean exactly?
Well, what they're saying is that the camera technically wasn't transmitting a signal. Unfortunately, they contradict themselves because they said the camera was warm to the touch. So it must have been on.
Huh. So, Vinu, does the family have a reason to be upset about this?
Absolutely. I mean, here, the issue you've got here is that you can forget Pirates of the Caribbean. You've got perverts of the Caribbean. You've got potential child pornography and video voyeurism going on right on a Carnival cruise ship. And the cruise ship has a duty to protect its passengers. They have actual liability because they're a common carrier. The other issue is that this brings us to the next point, which is that the crime scene was completely mishandled by the employee. If you saw the video taken by the father even says, should you not put on gloves? So it's the exact opposite. It's like bizarro CSI. It's the exact opposite of what should have happened.
Huh. So Jimmy, what do these look like?
Well, I mean, this is a small camera I have in my hand, and this is large. Most of the cameras are pinhole. You'll never see them. You'll never find them. They can be concealed inside an everyday object, like an electrical outlet, coffee maker, within cables, an outlet, an AC charger. Unless you have the right equipment, you'll never know that you're being watched by a hidden camera.
So what are the rules? I mean, there are cameras all over public places, on the sidewalk, inside buildings, inside hotel lobbies. Are there ever legitimate cameras inside living spaces on cruise liners or in hotels?
No. No, it's just that's why you have a crime going on here.
Okay, so never. So if you find a camera where you're sleeping, it shouldn't be there.
Correct. Or the FBI is looking at you, or something like this is happening where there's video voyeurism going on at the very least.
Or you live in Washington. There's an epidemic. Yeah. There's an actual epidemic of hidden cameras being placed in many different places because they're so inexpensive to find. You can buy them on eBay or Amazon for as little as $30 or $40. And you can place them anywhere you want. Now, the camera that they did find in the one room had to have a little transmitter, which meant that it would have only transmitted within the ship area, someplace local. The recorder must have been within the next room or within a couple other rooms. It couldn't have been much farther away.
Well, so it couldn't be so hard to find it then, could it?
Well, it is kind of hard to find because some of them are so small. You only need to expose the pinhole area of the lens. And I can hide that in a hole as small as a buttonhole. So very, very small. You wouldn't be able to find it normally. Most of these people that have been finding the cameras have found them accidentally. because the person who put them in there really didn't know what they were doing. This is actually a large camera. They make them much smaller.
So what's your defense against this?
You have to look at power. Power is the main thing. What is the camera connected to? If it's battery operated, more than likely the camera's only going to last a few hours because it has to power the camera and the transmitter. Always check for outlets. Look to see where it's connected to an outlet. Also look at anything that's pointing towards the bed. That's the most important thing.
So, Vinu, how paranoid are you knowing what you know about these things?
I'd be worried. You know, Carnival, as I mentioned, is a common carrier. It's a cruise ship. Has a duty to protect its passengers. Its slogan is fun for all for fun. Well, the fun is not being had by the passengers here. It's being had by some pervert, you know.
Well, in this case, and you'd think it would have to be an employee because without any knowledge of it, it's hard to see who else could do that. Hope we find out. Jimmy, Vinu, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Set off a suicide bomb in a subway tunnel near Times Square in New York City. He succeeded only in injuring himself. His family, though, remarkably says they're outraged, not by what he did, but by what the police did in the aftermath of the crime. In a statement, his family said this, quote, "We're outraged by the behavior of law enforcement officials during this investigation. Today, we've seen our children as young as 4 years old held out in the cold, detained as their parents are questioned. One teenage relative was pulled out of high school classes and interrogated without a lawyer, without his parents. These are not the actions we expect from our justice system. We hope to see better in the days and weeks to come." Amr Zahar is a law professor at the University of Detroit Mercy, and he joins us tonight. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Hey, good evening, Tucker.
So it seems like this is a little baffling. I had trouble believing it was real, actually, when I first read it. So you find out that someone in your family has attempted to kill strangers in the name of jihad in a subway station, and you issue a statement saying that you've been wronged somehow? How does this work?
Well, I mean, let's be clear. In that statement, they also said that they were heartbroken by the attack. So to characterize it as they were just attacking the police is wrong. But I think there is an issue, right, of bias in enforcement. We didn't see the police conduct this sort of treatment against the family of Dylan Roof or Robert Deere, James Holmes, right? They just view Muslims and their families as possible suspects, as suspicious all the time. No, we know.
I wonder. Now, why do you think that is? I wonder. Have you seen the numbers on this? I mean, let's be totally real.
What numbers?
The numbers on likelihood of committing a terror attack in a public place, particularly a suicide bomb in a subway station, are a little higher for Muslims than they are for Presbyterians. I'm not attacking Muslims. Some of them are friends of mine, but let's be honest here. Let's stop lying all the time.
Well, the media thinks a terror attack's only a terror attack if it's committed by a Muslim anyway. All right? I mean, we saw Stephen Paddock, for instance, in Vegas. Look how the media treated his brother days after the attack. He became a superstar. It turns out he's actually a criminal. He was arrested on child pornography charges a month ago.
Not on this show he was. But look, here's what baffles me. So you come into this country. You come into this country if you're this guy's family from Bangladesh, okay? And you come in here through the grace and kindness of the American people. You're here like 20 minutes, and all of a sudden you're complaining about bias against you and our justice system. It's like, you just got here. Where's the gratitude?
Well, I didn't just get,
no, I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about, needless to say, I'm talking about the family of the bomber. These people issue a statement like, you know, we're the victims here. It seems like in a normal country, you would say to people who just arrived, like, you know, you should apologize profusely and stop complaining about bias.
Let's hold on a second. There's no indication that they didn't cooperate with law enforcement. In fact, Muslims across the country cooperate with law enforcement all the time. I think I'm looking at the bigger picture here, which is there is a bias in law enforcement. Look what happened to the clock boy down in Texas, who they said that he was committing a hoax bomb crime. He was questioned for 4 hours without a lawyer. They tried to say he was committing a hoax bomb, and it's not a hoax if you're telling everybody it's a clock.
You think he's the only one who's
they didn't think he had a bomb?
Question without a lawyer? I mean, look, here's the point. Do you see something wrong with a system, our system, that invites people from impoverished foreign countries who show up here and immediately learn that they're victims and part of an interest group that's at war with the larger society? And that's clearly what happened in this case. Do you see that as a recipe for disunion in a country at all?
Look, I think it's important to criticize law enforcement when it acts in a biased way. Now, in this situation, we see, as in many situations when it comes to Muslim Americans,
station. I mean, gee whiz.
nobody's saying he's not guilty. Of course, he's guilty. He should go to jail for the rest of his life. But when you treat his family immediately as accomplices, when you don't do that with white criminals, then we have a problem.
They do it with white criminals. I just had a friend who had his door knocked down by the FBI. You know, you don't know anything. Maybe that's part of your problem with the way people are treated in this country.
Stephen Paddock's brother was a celebrity on the news. Stephen Paddock's brother was treated like a celebrity on the news
jail
for 3 days.
Something horrible now. Anyway, this is
now he is, but they didn't know that when after the shooting, and he was treated like a celebrity on the news. You're just wrong about that.
I wonder if people hate this country. Professor, thank you. I'm serious. They're taught to hate this country, and it's distressing. Dan Bongino is a former NYPD officer, and he joins us tonight. So, Dan, I just want to analyze this in a sober way. I'm getting a little spun up here. Is what you know about how the family of this lunatic, about how you know about how they were treated, is it inconsistent with the way law enforcement acts in general? Do you see this as an example of bias from what you know?
No, Tucker. And that guy has no idea what he's talking about. I know he's not on the air anymore. I get it. Maybe it's a little unfair. But he had his platform. Now I'm going to take a shot at him. That guy's crazy. That is not law enforcement's biased. Does he have any idea how the process works? Let me explain how it actually works for reasonable people out there, not that maniac, okay? Here's how it works. When a bomb goes off in the city, you have this thing called an exigent circumstances contingency for Miranda, where you don't have to Mirandize people because you know what, Tucker? Another bomb could go off and somebody could be killed. Does he not know that? Has he never read? I mean, does he come on the air completely, entirely unprepared?
So just to clarify for our viewers, so in those cases where the police are speaking to people without Mirandizing, without a lawyer present, they're not doing so to gather evidence in order to charge that person, but to find out if there's an imminent threat in some other direction. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Thank you for saying that, Tucker. One, Miranda, just to be clear, if you're in custody and you're interrogated, plus those statements are going to be used in a proceeding, in a court proceeding later, then yes, you have to Mirandize people. Right. If your primary interest, Tucker, is saving the lives of people who could be killed in an additional bombing, what did you think the cops were going to do to the family of this Bangladeshi man? You think they were going to show up with a plate of tea and crumpets and sit down? I mean, is that guy kidding me? What did he think was going to happen?
Those stunning anti-Trump text messages that a former member of the Mueller team, FBI official Peter Strzok, sent to his girlfriend, FBI official Lisa Page. Among the texts first reported by Fox last night, March 4th of 2016, after Page calls candidate Trump a, quote, loathsome human, Strzok says, good for Hillary. She says it is. He says, would he be a worse president than Cruz? Trump, yes, I think so. He says, I'm not sure. OMG, he's an idiot. Remember, that was while the FBI agent was an integral part of the agency's probe into Hillary Clinton's email server. And Strzok was the one credited with changing the wording and then FBI Director James Comey's assessment from grossly negligent to extremely careless. Then look at that second text you just heard about involving Walmart, August 2016. Strzok text, just went to a Southern Virginia Walmart. I could smell the Trump support. Republicans believe the most explosive text, though, involves the controversial FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe. Remember, his wife raked in about $500,000 from a PAC tied to Clinton friend Terry McAuliffe. The problem with this August 2016 text, it speaks to a possible conspiracy. Strzok texting, quote, I want to believe the path you threw out for consideration in Andy's office, that there's no way he or Trump gets elected. But I'm afraid we can't take that risk. Rosenstein repeatedly deflected questions about that.
If you have those Walmart shopping Trump voters that Peter Strzok so derided in his text messages, how do they react to that? Do they have confidence in their FBI and their Department of Justice?
We have appropriate internal affairs officers who will get to the bottom of that.
Now, Rosenstein vaguely said that report will be coming out fairly soon, and he also defended Robert Mueller and said he does not regret hiring him as a special counsel, noting that when these Strzok texts were first learned over the summer, Mueller pushed him aside, Martha.
Ed, thank you very much. So today's Congressman Trey Gowdy pressed Rosenstein on the reports of bias on the Mueller-Russia investigative team. Here's a bit more of that.
So let's be really clear why we have special counsel. There was either a real or perceived conflict of interest that we were fearful would either impact the result or people's confidence in the process. And then lo and behold, those who are supposed to make sure there are no conflicts of interest seem to have a few of their own. There's a senior prosecutor who sent obsequious emails to a fact witness. She's a really important fact witness if you pursue the line of inquiry that my Democrat friends want to pursue. They got off of collusion, and now they're on obstruction of justice.
So here exclusively on the story tonight, House Judiciary Member Trey Gowdy. Congressman, welcome. I believe that you were referring to Sally Yates there and the email that she received from Andrew Weissman congratulating her on not defending the Trump ban and saying that he was in awe of her, I think are the words he used. So you pressed Rod Rosenstein on this today. Were you satisfied with the answer that you got to that question?
A little bit, but, you know, he was explaining all day. This is a really bad fact pattern. I hate it for Rod Rosenstein that he's the one explaining it, because he's not Peter Strzok and he's not Andy McCabe and he's not Jim Comey, so he's having to do a little bit of cleanup. But these are really bad facts if you care about an impartial, objective Department of Justice and FBI.
All right, I want to go to the other part of the text messages that goes to this question of conspiracy, because as Ed Henry laid out, the timeline on all of this is very problematic. This is a text message from Peter Strzok to Lisa Page. I want to believe the path you threw out for consideration in Andy's office, that there's no way he gets elected, but I'm afraid we can't take that risk. It's like an insurance policy in the unlikely event that you die before you're 40. Now, you know, obviously everyone's going to try to figure out what he was going to do to make sure that you couldn't take that risk. But it would help everyone to understand that at the time that he said that, he was investigating Hillary Clinton to decide whether or not they were going to pursue charges against her.
Yes, ma'am. I'm still trying to figure out why 3 FBI agents are discussing politics in the deputy director's office, because you're not supposed to discuss politics on federal ground, and FBI agents aren't supposed to engage in politics for Hatch Act reasons. Remember, we were supposed to interview Andy McCabe yesterday on another committee. It was all set up and ready to go, and then at the last minute they said, he can't come Tuesday. He's going to come next week. I'll be shocked if he comes next week. I'll be a little bit surprised if he's still an employee of the FBI this time next week. But the notion that 3 bureau agents would be conspiring or plotting on how to handle the outcome of a presidential election is the opposite of what you want in an objective, dispassionate, neutral FBI.
All right, so you said that when you go home to South Carolina next week, you're going to get a lot of questions about all of this.
Yes, ma'am.
And I would imagine that your constituents are going to want to know, so what happens? You know, what happens now? How are they going to right this ship?
They will want to know that, and they will want to know whether or not we can trust or rely upon what Robert Mueller comes up with. And I have been very defensive of Robert Mueller from day one, even up until as recently as a week ago. But he hired some people that have terrible bias, and he didn't have to. There are plenty of women and men who don't contribute to political campaigns. There are plenty of prosecutors he could have hired. So at some point, Bob Mueller is going to have to explain, how did he vet these prosecutors and agents? How did these folks slip by? Because what's going to happen, Martha, is if he decides to do something to the Trump campaign or prosecute President Trump, Republicans have a built-in argument for bias, that the fix was in from day one. And if he clears President Trump, then the Democrats are going to say, well, the pressure from the Republicans was so unrelenting. He's in a no-win situation, but he's there because of some of the decisions he's made.
Yeah. Do you think that conspiracy point that we just talked about, does that lay the groundwork for any Hatch Act investigation, do you think, before I let you go?
Well, I think using an official phone to discuss politics is a Hatch Act violation. That's my old job, but it is incredibly problematic that you are in the deputy. Remember, Jim Comey gets very sanctimonious when you talk to him about a politicized FBI. Very sanctimonious. Well, guess what? In his deputy director's office, they were discussing how to prevent one candidate from becoming president of the United States. It doesn't get any more political than that.
That they wanted some kind of insurance policy against that potential eventuality, which they obviously all found an atrocious idea. Trey Gowdy.
Almost as bad as Ted Cruz. Almost as bad as Ted Cruz.
Right? Congressman, thank you so much. Always good to talk to you. So here now with more reaction to all of this, Katie Pavlich, the townhall.com news editor, and Jessica Tarlov, senior director of research at Bustle.com and author of America in the Age of Trump. Both are Fox News contributors. Jessica, let me start with you. Your reaction to all this today, is any of what has been brought up here problematic to you as an American citizen watching all this?
Absolutely. I think that the text messages before the conspiracy theory part seem to be personal political beliefs. And that is not in violation of the Hatch Act. We're all entitled to that, and you can certainly talk to your girlfriend about that. And, you know, people meet at work, so FBI agent and FBI agent. When you get to a conversation about thinking about ways in which you could stop this that went on in Andy McCabe's office, that's distressing, and I agree with Congressman Gowdy about that. I think that Robert Mueller took the right steps, obviously, the second he knew about this, to get rid of Peter Strzok. But I see why people don't trust. They started not trusting over the summer when there was the indictment, non-indictment. Then, you know, Democrats hated Jim Comey for bringing up the letter with the Huma Abedin emails that may have very well cost Hillary Clinton the election when you think we lost by 78,000 votes. And now we're back to this. So both sides, you know, you can pick your poison about the FBI.
And just to remind everyone at home, Peter Strzok was the person who changed the language from grossly negligent to extremely careless in the way that Jim Comey was going to present the argument that she did not need to be indicted. And that language is very important, Katie. So is that perhaps, and I'm just throwing out a possibility here, what he meant by, I'm afraid we can't take that risk?
Yeah, well, you ask a very good question in the sense of what were they planning to do? And when you look at the details that were asked today and the answers that were given and the ties we now have between the Associate Deputy Attorney General, who asked for the co-founder of Fusion GPS to come to the Justice Department to have a meeting, and then later his wife is hired at Fusion GPS to investigate Trump and individuals working on the Trump campaign, it sure looks to me like this is more about collusion between the Obama Justice Department, which the Obama administration had a habit of using federal agencies to go after their political enemies, and collusion between Fusion GPS, which then led to this dossier being used to get a FISA warrant on American citizens who are working on a transition campaign. And the thing is today is Rod Rosenstein, he knows whether that dossier was used to get the FISA warrant. And he didn't say so. He didn't say yes or no whether it was. He knows if it was. And that's the question here, because there have been serious violations and abuses of power when it comes to not just the process here and the conflict of interest and the political leanings being exposed. This is about American citizens who are simply working on a different political side of the aisle, being spied on as a result of this collusion at the Justice Department and between this investigative firm.
But we did hear from both Rod Rosenstein and Christopher Wray that they had complete confidence in the Mueller investigation, and they did not think he should be removed.
Where they are at this point.
Yes.
But, you know, so that's my last question to you, Jessica, in terms of the confidence that people should have in this. And as Trey Gowdy just pointed out, the problem is if they do find something egregious in this handling of the Trump administration or the Trump campaign, it's not going to look good in terms of how they got there. And there will be questions raised about whether or not it was a political assessment.
Absolutely. I think the problem with just our times generally, and we've spoken about this a lot, and even the results last night coming in from Alabama, is that we are a completely divided partisan country at this point, and people are going to pick their narrative based on who they back. So if Robert Mueller comes back and he says, actually, Donald Trump spoke directly with Vladimir Putin, and he said, hey, thanks so much for doing all of this for me. I can't wait to work closely with you once you're president. Republicans might be like, that's made up. That's not what happened here. And Democrats are going to go for their narrative. And I think
that's definitely true. But, you know, so are we going to accept the fact we're going to say we live in a world where you can't find 10 people who don't really get involved in politics and who are attorneys who really do draw right down the line?
I will say I do know that Robert Mueller asked for Republicans and conservatives to apply to work on the special counsel. Whether they did apply or whether they were rejected, I do not know. I know that he did ask. But the question moving forward is, again, how does this get reconciled? How does the FBI and the Department of Justice get credibility back when this is the situation that they have at hand? And Robert Mueller, as Trey Gowdy said, was respected by both sides of the aisle when he was picked, but this looks really
cheered
bad.
on by Newt Gingrich as a good pick at that point. All right, you guys, thank you very much.
Thanks, Martha.
I can't loot that.
Sug Sug. Go with honor.
I'm out of range. Do that yet. Not ready yet. I can't do that yet. I can't do that yet. I don't have enough energy. Not enough energy. ready yet. I'm out of range. That would be stealing.
Did this dickhead loot it? Like, he was looting it. This idiot probably looted it again. Fucking retard probably looted twice.